Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Majik here, just talking to you about why you should listen to me, not listen. Why you should listen to me, telling you not to listen to me. Basically, what I mean by that is, on the internet, we are in the information age, and there are tons of people out there giving good advice and bad advice. What you have to do is sort it out. As I said a second ago, we are in the information age. Everything is at our fingertips. We don't have to go to the library anymore. We don't have to go to a professional town over to figure out what's going on. We don't have to go to professionals in another city. If we have a nutrition question, we could actually ask somebody instead of having to go to a nutritionist in a major city close by or transferring to somewhere where there's a specialist. There's so much information at hand. Problem with that is, with all the information at hand, there's so much misinformation. How do you sort the two out? When it comes down to it, there are two types of information. There are two types of people really out there. There are those that generally want to give out good information, and those that want to do one of two things. They want to rally the masses, or they want to rustle the masses. They want to either get people pissed off, or they want people to go, yeah, that's right, he's saying something good, which ends up being two ways. One, they become either a bleeding heart, or they basically become a troll and yelling about certain things, and they like to swear and they like to yell and they like to scream and say, oh, this is that and that's wrong and this is it, and they love to latch onto an idea and yell at it and find anything they can to prove that it's wrong, or any idea that they have that's correct. They'll latch onto anything that says that. It's biased opinions saying that they're right and they're wrong. They're right and someone else is wrong. What happens with this is a lot of people go, yeah, that's a good idea, I should do that, or that's a bad idea, I shouldn't do that. But what happens is you're following exactly what somebody's mentality is, what works for them and not what works for you. Personally, I only follow what I feel works for me. With all these videos and everything that I say, I want you to take them into consideration. Take anything and everything I say with a grain of salt, because in that sense, I'm only telling you what worked for me. I will only ever say what worked for me. I'll tell you the circumstances. I'll tell you why. I figured it out. I will never give a diet advice saying that this diet is exactly the best, because anybody who says that this diet works for everybody is a liar. They're completely lying to you. There's no way that one diet works for everybody. Does paleo work for everybody? No. Does vegan work for everybody? No. Does vegetarian? No. Does a ton of meat work for everybody? No. When you have all these high carb, high low fat, or low carb, high fat diets, people jump on them, maybe lose a few pounds. They don't get used to it. They jump off, they rebound and regain, and then it's one of those moments where they try really hard, and they get really depressed because they don't see the results they want. They rebound, they get worse depressing, and honestly, I just have a feeling, do what works for you and makes you feel healthy. Don't shoot for a small-term goal, and then you get, oh, once this is done, I can do this. Shoot for a long-term goal with short-term goals in the middle, with things such as diet, trying to keep yourself happy. So for me, what I do is I adjust my diet constantly. I'll do little tweaks here and there. The latest tweak has actually been, I've personally been feeling I've been eating way too much meat. That's a personal feeling of mine. What did I do? After talking with Jen was helping me out with this one, we found out that we were just walking around, we found that lentils were quite cheap right at the moment. We took a look at them, and I took a look at the protein, the carbohydrates, and the fat in them, the amount of fiber. I'm like, this is a good source of protein, fiber, and carbohydrates for me. So I decided to substitute that in. I substituted in a certain serving size, cutting back on other carbohydrates such as rice and my meat intake, and therefore I'm replacing it with other things. Again, some people call it counting their macros. I don't count crap. I measure things so I know kind of what I'm eating, but meh. So in that sense, you have people who say one thing's right and one thing's wrong. Where you get a lot of that, I find, is people like to really hammer out what they hate about something, and they rally people around that hatred. Hate is a great tool to rally people around anything. Works great in any sense. Think of the liberals when they're yelling at a conservative, or think of a conservative who yells at a liberal. Both sides have their weird views, and any radicalism yells at it. A great example in the fitness world is how everybody hates CrossFit. Personally, I've seen some problems with it. I've seen some good stuff with it. I find that it's gotten a lot of people lifting, and a lot of people getting away from just doing cardio and not doing just little tiny things. So personally, I think it's done a great thing for the fitness world. Has it created a lot of zealots against and for it? Yes. There's a lot of extremes on both ends. Personally, I don't care. Comes down to, you get the same thing when you get people talking about powerlifting. You have both sides of it, which is a big thing because you get a lot of people thinking that they're nothing but fat slobs who do nothing but lift weights and can't run anywhere. Or you have them who think that it's the only way to live and being huge is a great thing. Great. But when you sit there and shoot for one goal that doesn't have any sort of long-term longevity and doesn't really make you happy in a sense, it does a short-term happiness, but you're sacrificing years in the future, I personally feel it's a little too much. I like doing strongman. It's fun for me. Do I want to be 280 pounds anymore? Nah. I was. I competed. I was strong. I hated finding clothes. And I hated how I looked. Now, I'm 231. I still think I'm a little big. But for now, I can be this size. Once I decide to quit, I'm going to go down. That's how I work. I'm going to do what I can to live my life on my priorities being everything else. Living happy and not caring what other people say. So, with all this and saying what not to like, who should you listen to? People who say what their opinion is, what worked for them. People who break down things that are just the basics. Things such as rudimentary diet advice. What type of things to look for in your diet, what not to. Things like what types of meats you should try to eat, basing it on a little bit of science, basing it with science. If they have science background and things like that, that's a great idea. Exercises that they're using, they're building it on how to properly execute exercises instead of it being how to build a program purely from this, do my program and this works. You want the people that are breaking it down, showing you how to do certain movements, allowing you to put whatever you want into your program, what fits for you, to be the ones to listen to. Also, people who put their money where their mouth is. I'm going to use a couple of great examples. A big example is Mark Bell. He has put his money where his mouth is 100 times. And 100 times more every day. Anything he says, he puts his mouth to it. He puts his money right behind where he is. With that said, do I agree with him on every point? No. Does he focus mostly on powerlifting? Yeah, it's not what I'm focusing on. But he's got some great motivational stuff. He is a former small-time pro wrestler, which makes him very funny. And he knows what he's talking about. He's been there. He's been in the game for a very long time. He has great motivational speeches, but that's where I kind of differ with him because his stuff is very short-term. I'd like him to come out and say something, long-term about the other side of his aspect because he does have a great loving family, and I'd love for him to sort of say something about how much he really cares and longevity of that. Anyways, beyond that, another example is I'm going to use a friend of mine who isn't a YouTuber. He's a big name, Omar Isov. You can look him up. I'm not going to spell his name. Screw it. He has a lot of time where he likes to break down certain exercises, how it's doing. It gives you an idea. Maybe try it. Is this part lacking? Do this. Try it. He puts his money where his mouth is, and if he screws up, he screws up. He's many times admitted he made mistakes on things that he said earlier in his career, and will continue to. He's worked with great names. He's worked with big names. He's worked with a lot of people, and he's always open to advice. Actually knowing him in person, he's one of those people that will actually talk to you about what he's doing, and if you have any tips for him, he'll listen, which is a great person to listen to, and that's the type of person to look for online. Personally, if you're looking for anybody to talk to one-on-one, look for a specialist in any sense. If you're looking for a nutritionist, speak to a nutrition specialist. Make sure that they know what your goals are. Don't just look to a general nutritionist, because if you're talking to a nutritionist that specializes in vegan diets and you love meat, you're not going to work too well. If you want it to be a sport-specific diet, make sure you have somebody who deals with a sport-specific diet. When it comes to therapists, find a therapist. I'm using therapists as a great example because personally, it's one of the things that I find talking about your problems, talking about how what worries you, is find a therapist that works with you. One that you enjoy their style of work, of how they interact with their clients. Because if you don't feel comfortable talking to them, you'll never have that connection. You'll never you'll never move forward. When it comes to training, don't have anybody who's out of the box. There are tons of out-of-the-box training programs online. You can easily find that stuff. and there's no point in using anything else. If you're going to have somebody who's just going to have the same program that he gives every guy and girl, you're wasting your money. Find somebody who specializes with you, somebody who works with you. And lastly, when it comes to anything else, it comes to doctors, when it comes to I don't know, coaches for stuff. I'm going to use vocal coaches. Find somebody who works with what you're working with, right? Don't go to I think a good friend of mine who's a strength coach said, don't take a program from a soccer coach when you're trying to build your strength. Same thing, if he's never going to talk to you about how to teach you how to do soccer drills to make you a better soccer player, he'll teach you how to get stronger, how to be faster, but he won't teach you the skills, because that's not his job. Don't talk to somebody who's not, it's not their job. Don't go to a general practitioner when you have a problem with, say, your heart. You might want to talk to a doctor that specializes in hearts, which if I remember what they were called, I would tell you, but I don't, and I'm too lazy to look it up. So that's it for today. I rambled, I stumbled. Hopefully it wasn't too horrible.